Hello, my name is Mark Herman. I am the designer of Empire of the Sun, the Pacific War, 1941 to 1945. What I hope to do is, one, learn how to make YouTube videos. I thought that this would be a good opportunity for me to pick up some new tricks going forward. As I believe that games going in the future need to have instructional videos and such, which people very readily like to see. It helps them quickly pick up a game, and so quite frankly, I think this is just me trying to figure out how to do this going forward. But right now, what I thought I would do is do a video, or actually a series of videos, not around how to play the game, although that will become an emergent property, hopefully, of the actual videos, but to actually learn how to play the game well from a strategy point of view. And then in the process, you'll see how the basic moves go on. A number of people have actually already posted videos on Empire of the Sun, which to a greater or lesser degree, talk about how to play it. I'm going to try to teach you how to play it in the opening and how to play it well, hopefully, and then through that you'll actually see the mechanics of the game more in the context of a scenario. So, and one of the things I would like to do as a general apology is I'm no expert with the camera, so now that I move on to the board, you'll see what I'm talking about. So here is the overall board. So this is my large 4x6 foot set. The one that you would get in a box obviously fits in the box, but it's a lot smaller. This sort of gives you a sense of the size of the theater of operations. So let's talk about it in the beginning. That this is the beginning of the 1942 scenario. In that scenario, the Japanese need to basically conquer the Dutch East Indies, which is the piece under the area under the board that I'm pointing at right now. If I do a little close-up, you'll see that the orange pieces are the Dutch units. Here we are looking at Borneo. Here we're looking at Java. As we swing over here, we're looking at the U.S. positions in the Philippines. Over to that area, we're looking at Malaya and the Japanese in the Indochina theater. And then further away, we have the China-India-Burma theater. Way over here, you'll see far away that big pile of counters over there. That's Oahu, where Pearl Harbor has occurred about a month ago. So this is the beginning of the 1942 scenario. So basically, Pearl Harbor has occurred, and the Japanese have already conquered some basic areas there. They've captured Mindanao. They've landed on Luzon in a big way. They have invaded Malaya, as I pointed out earlier. And that is basically where our scenario begins. So what happens in a game of this scenario is that you are going to have to try to conduct operations with cards as your basic mechanic for moving things forward. And so what I'm going to do now is get us focused on the cards and how to look at a hand going forward. One quick thing for those who have not looked at any videos, we're looking at a number of pieces here. You'll see right underneath at the bottom of the screen a 9-12. That's an infantry army with a strength of 9 and defense of 12. You'll see peeking out from under it 3 numbers. That's actually a Japanese light carrier with an attack strength of 8, a defense strength of 8, and a range for its aircraft power of 3. As we go forward, I'll always try to point out what the numbers mean, but that gives you just sort of an initial sense of what you're looking at going forward. Again, blue pieces are U.S., yellow pieces are Japanese, orange pieces are Dutch, and the sort of tan with some red are Commonwealth of various nationalities. So, be back in 1 second. Empire of the Sun comes with 2 decks of cards. The red one is the Japanese deck, and the red one with the blue trim is the Allied deck. What we would do on the first turn is the Japanese are going to pull 7 cards. At the same time, the Allies would normally pull 5 cards, but to add a little bit of excitement to this, I'm going to first look at the Japanese cards without looking at the Allied cards, figure out what the Japanese should do into this circumstance for the opening, and then we will execute that opening, and then as if we now also became the Allied player, we'll find out what the Allied player cards are and then what their reaction could be to that without having any foreknowledge of the opening to those cards. Obviously going into the second and third card plays we'll already have knowledge, but that should at least make the discussion a little bit more forthright. So, without further ado, I'm going to take the Japanese deck, and I'm going to shuffle them cleverly. See, as you see, they've been shuffled on a manual shuffler already, but you can see I'm just randomly shuffling them here. And then I'm going to cut it a couple of times. So hopefully, I don't know, that looks shuffled enough. Okay, now I'm going to deal with the top 7 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And put those down there. And now let's see what the Japanese got for their opening hand. So the first card they got is Flight Instructors, which is a 3OC card. I'll talk about the cards a little bit more. Okay, here's our first military event, the Big Tokyo Express. So we've got a a card that allows us to do various offensive things. We've got a China Operations. This one in particular is requires that Doolittle have already embalmed Japan. In this turn, we're just going to use it as a 2 card, so it doesn't matter what the event is. We got both Tokyo Express cards. There happen to be 2 in the deck, and we started this game with 2 Tokyo Expresses. This one is actually better than the other one because it gives us 2 free amphibious shipping points, hereafter called ASPs. So that's going to let us move around a little bit more forces during this first turn. The next card, okay, so Kamikaze card. This is really a late war card with circumstances. So right now it's going to be a 2 card, which is not a bad thing. Oh, we got a big one here. So we got East Force. This is another really good offensive card for the Japanese because it gives us paratroopers. And last we have a code change card that on the first turn probably doesn't offer us a lot. It's going to be a 2 card. One of the things that you have to remember with these cards is I put the names and the events that are sort of the historical precedent for the card on the card, but you don't have to use them the way it says. You need to think of the cards as just like supply points or logistics. And the more activations or bonuses the cards give you, the more logistic assets you have to work with. And so even if you didn't have a strong hand in the opening, you would consider doing lots of things. But right now, this is a fairly good hand. And so what we're going to do now is I'm going to start a description of how to think about this hand by going over it card by card. Back in 1 minute. Okay, I've now broken the hand, sort of segregated it by how I sort of think about it for the opening. So first off, we have our 3 military events, and we're going to figure out how best to accomplish our basic objectives, which we're going to discuss shortly with those cards. The 3 2 cards that you see, what are labeled the China Offensive card, the Kamikaze card, and the Code Change card, are actually going to be used to maneuver forces and conduct combat. So we don't see, well, the Kamikaze event will not become available. There are, by the way, 6 Kamikaze cards in the deck. You typically will get to score 1 or 2 of them per game, but for the most part they're just sort of a general utility 2OC card for most of the game, and in the end sometimes you get some leverage out of them. The Code Change card is a good thing to have, except we're on the offense and we're going to need all the energy we can get out of these cards to accomplish our objectives. So this particular reaction card, but there are other ones in the deck that we'll see later on, and so that's no loss. And then the China Offensive card, as I said, depends on, this particular one has a precondition that Doolittle has to have bombed Japan. That may or may not happen for a while, and so if it became important, we could always fish it out of the discard deck with certain cards, but right now it's a 2 card, and so we've got 3 2 cards, 3 good offensive cards. And then the last one is Flight Instructors. Now, as many know, the Japanese had a great pre-war Air Force and naval air arm. And one of the problems they had is they could not scale up the replacements like the U.S. did. And so this card actually allows us to effectively rotate guys off the front lines and create a better policy that'll give us 3 air replacements that are quite valuable. The Japanese only get 5 of them through cards. This is 3 of the 5. And so we're going to at least see as much as possible how we can keep from using this card as a 3 card and saving it for an event. The easiest way to do that to keep the card count is we probably will put it into a future offensive queue. This way we maintain we get a little bit of a card count advantage, a little bit of logistics benefit into the next turn, and the event will be available to us. We'll play it next turn. It doesn't have to be played right now. We don't need the replacements right now. In fact, we don't even have any air units on the board that can take replacements. These are the elite pilots that we have in the beginning of the game, and such that these replacements couldn't be used now anyway. So we'll probably bank those for the future. So now the question is, what are our objectives? So when we kind of look at the map now, the thing we want to do first off is, and you need to think of in sort of terms of military operations, is we want to take out this air unit and we want to take out that air unit. The reason that is that is the basically represents half of, well, this unit is the Malaysia air unit. The 6, by the way, is its attack factor. Its 9 is its defense factor, and the 2 is its range. I'm not sure how well you can see it on the film, but there's a little bit of a white parentheses a 4. The plane can go 4 spaces from airfield to airfield as long as it's not going to enter into combat. These are short-range fighter aircraft, mostly Buffaloes that they got from the U.S. In Lend-Lease. And underneath it, you'll see peeking out 2 numbers, a 5 and a 1. That is the headquarters, the Malaya headquarters. The 5 represents its range, so it doesn't have much range. It mostly basically just commands the Malaysian peninsula. And the 1 is its efficiency rating. So basically in the game, anytime you use the HQ to activate, it's always either the operational number on the card, so that you've seen the card so far are 2s, 3s, and there are 1s. I don't think we dealt any 1s out for the Japanese this time. And you will also see, or if it's a military event, it's going to have a logistics value if you use the event. So basically, you would take either the logistics value, which typically in our cards for this turn are going to be 5s or 4s, and you would add it to that 1 efficiency, and that's how many activations you would get. If you use the number of the card, you add that to the 1. So in other words, a 2 card used with this would be 3 activations, but if you used a card that had a logistics value of 4, that would be 5 activations. So that just sort of gives you a sense of how that part of the system would work. But the main point is we want to basically make sure, under all circumstances, that we try to kill these 2 units, put those 2 headquarters out of supply, and that'll make our lives a little bit easier as we go forward. So backing away, how are we going to do that? And so when we look at our cards that we have right now, and let's focus in on just the military events, we're going to open up with a strong card. One of the differences between using a card for its military event and using the card for its number is that when you use it for the 3, in this particular case, all 3 of these cards are 3s. If you use it for the 3, you can only attack 1 hex. You can move people around and send them to places that don't require, that are not defended by the enemy, or you can move them in your rear areas or whatever you want, but you only get to start 1 battle when you use the card as a 3 card. However, when you use the card for the military event, and these 3 are military events, you are now allowed to have as many battle hexes. You can attack as many different units as you have units activated, quite frankly. So, for instance, if we look at East Force, it has a logistics value of 5. Now, all the cards are unique, and you have to read every single card carefully because they all have. There's no standardized card, although, or at least there's not many of a particular card. The way the deck is constructed from, combinatorial probability, is that there are factually 3 cards that look identical to the East Force card, as the East Force, Central Force, and West Force card, which represents sort of the big picture of what the Japanese tried to do at this point in the war. And we got one of the 3, which is exactly what you would hope to see sometimes. The Tokyo Express cards, again, are combined arms operations. The big advantage they give, and unfortunately they're coming out early, is that you could, in fact, they place a Tokyo Express marker. So they're really reflecting the idea that you could, in essence, create some extra logistics into a contested area and keep those guys alive. But as it turns out, that's going to be, we'll place the marker in the game, but it's not going to do us much good. Although there is sort of an unusual circumstance that it could play off for. So we'll see how that works out. When I think about which card is probably the best one to start with, I would say we want to try to get the maximum number of activations, and we can go with the East Force first, because anyway, it has paratroopers, and that's always a hoot. And more importantly, more activations will let us bring more units to bear to make sure that we take out those 2 air units, plus try to accomplish a few other things. So in a second I'm going to take us through the actual sequence of play. But for the first card play, we're going to go with East Force. And as I said earlier, the methodology I'm going to use here is I'm going to play East Force. I'm going to take you through the sequence of play. And at the point in the sequence of play where the allied player would be able to start doing something, which is going to come pretty shortly, we'll then go see what cards the allies actually have. So we're going to make this conversation is going to take place sans knowing what's coming next. And so somehow we might actually surprise ourselves on this first card. Just to show you that this is a unrehearsed YouTube video, you'll note that all of a sudden the card in front of you just became the big Tokyo Express operation. The reason that is as I looked at the hand, I realized that the East Force restriction on South or South Seas HQ is not a problem per se, but that meant that I would get 6 or 7 activations out of that card, because the South HQ is a 1 and the South Seas HQ is a 2. But because of where most of the operations are going to take place, I would be using this card after the South Seas HQ, and that would give me a total of 6 activations. Then I thought about this card. I said, well, if I can use Combined Fleet, which is the big HQ for the Japanese, has an efficiency rating of 3. If you look at that logistics value of 4, 4 plus 3 is 7, I can actually get an extra activation. Now, that comes at a cost, right? The cost here is I only get to activate 1 ground unit of any size for this operation. And, of course, by going first, I'm going to lose the use of the Tokyo Express marker. Not that that's a big deal. But then I realized that I've got another Tokyo Express marker. And, by the way, I once figured this out, but there's something like 3 billion hands possible, 7-card hands out of Empire of the Sun. I could sit down and go find my notes and get the real number, but either case, it's an extraordinarily large number. This is just using the classic N choose K formula that you learned in high school, then probably forgot. I've been using this my whole life, so I'm pretty facile with it. But the point is that it's a very large number of combinations. So basically, in my lifetime, I'll never see all the possibilities. And since I play it all the time, I do see unusual hands from my perspective. And so I don't recall ever getting both Tokyo Express cards on the opening hand. And so that also offers the Japanese player, in this case, an opportunity. And so what I'm thinking about is the 1 ground unit that we're going to activate and send into the fray might be an invasion of Attu and Kiska from Japan, which we could do from Combined Fleet HQ. And if I do that, what we're going to, and again, just to give you a sort of a sense of the geography, just move this camera around a little bit so you'll all stay awake while I do this. Up there is Japan, and way up here, there's Attu and Kiska. And so if we put a Japanese ground unit, which would be specifically the 27th Army, up there in Attu and Kiska, it's at the end of a very long supply line. And there is a card in the Allied deck, which it could happen in the opening, is if Yamamoto is killed, what would happen is that unit would also be out of supply. And so one way to keep it alive would be to have a Tokyo Express marker on it. And so when we play the second Tokyo Express card, it will give us an opportunity to throw it on top of that unit as a backup in case the Allies were to draw Operation Vengeance, which is the historical mission where P-38 shot down Yamamoto over Bougainville in 1943. And that killed him, and then they had to replace him, obviously, because he couldn't perform his duties as a dead person. And so this might be a hedge here. So again, it's a small subtlety, but one that I sort of was thinking about. So here is CFHQ. You can see it's a 13-3, and 13 hexes is exactly how far it is from where it's sitting right now to Attu and Kiska, so it can keep that unit in Attu Kiska in supply because it's within its 13. Yeah, for a unit to be in supply, it has to be within range of an HQ somewhere that can support it, and so this is the one that would be supporting the Attu Kiska operations as it happened historically. So what we're going to do is we're now going to figure out how to knock out first the Allied air, and then the Allied air again is the one here and the one over here, and then we're going to try to figure out how to take them out. So shortly you'll see the units that I'm going to activate. So at the beginning of an offensive, so we've played our, we're looking at our opponent, and we would play our big Tokyo Express card. And what we're going to do is we're going to activate, first you activate units, and a lot of people sometimes get out of sequence, and they start getting questions about, can I do this, can I do that, what about this card, how does that affect that? And the answer to all these questions is timing in this game is based on following the sequence of play. So if you just do that, all the timing questions about what comes next just go away. So what we're looking at here is we're going to activate 7 units. So the first unit we're going to activate is the battleship Nagato. That's a big honkin' battle fleet of the Japanese, and that's a 2014, so it's a very powerful unit. And we're going to activate an Army Air unit, which is the 3rd Air Division. You'll see it sitting out in the water. It's obviously right on the land there, but I wanted to make it visible to you. We're going to activate the 27th Army, like we said. We only get to activate 1 ground unit. Now, another way to use it would be to use it for an invasion of something down the Dutch East Indies, but I'd like to create this threat for the Allies to worry about. And again, because we have these Tokyo Express cards, there may be a way to get some leverage in case the Allies get a particularly good hand, which is always possible. So that is 3 of our 7. We're going to activate this Naval Air Flotilla, land-based air unit. You'll see it's cocked over there to the side on Formosa. Then, as we go over here, we're going to turn on this cruiser, the CO Mogami, and the 22nd Air Flotilla also. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's the and the 7th one is the air unit that's on Luzon is our 7th unit. That's the 22. It's got a strength of 22, 10, 2. The 10 is its defense, 2 is its short range, full strength range. With the 4 in red there means it can attack at 4 space range, but then it would only be a 10, but 11 in this case, half the strength. But we're going to be able to get them in close. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to move, and I'm going to back this out so you can see me moving the pieces, and then I'll zoom back in as appropriate. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our 27th, and on a 3 card, which is what this is, moving like a naval unit, he goes 15 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And he lands on Atu Kiska. That will use up 1 of our 7 amphibious shipping points for the turn. So we only have 6 left. But of course, what the Allies don't know, and they wouldn't know that at this time, is that because we have the other Tokyo Express card, that one's big bonus is it gives us 2 more amphibious shipping points. So effectively, we've got 8 left, even though the Allies don't know that. Now, what happens next is let's get the attack on Manila going. So the battleship is going to move 2, 4, 6, 8, and it's going to basically come in and start bombarding the shore. And this air unit, and air units fly by legs, so you can go 3 legs of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it'll land at Clark Air Force Base and sit right there. So again, the Nagato and the 3rd Air Division attack there, and the one that was on Luzon, we're going to move it off to Malaysia, and I think I got it in the shot here. And so its first leg is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 to Canton, then 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going to land in Cameron, then 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's going to land in Kuala Lumpur, which is going to put it within 2 space range of that air unit. Then the 22nd is going to fly over to Kota Baru, which is going 1 space, only a short hop. And because it's a naval air unit, it has a little bit better range, and so its basic range is 3, 1, 2, 3. So these 2 attacking full strength, and then the Mogami will come over here. And so now and then the last unit to come in for our little battle is this naval air unit here. He's a range of 5 when he's moving, to battle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And he can also stop here and be part of the battle. And so now when we look at the battles, we only have 2 battles. And so we'll label them A and B. So those are our 2 battles, and the 2 battle hexes are Malaya and Singapore and Manila. So again, offensive event card, we can do more than 1 battle hex. If we only use it for the 3, we can only use 1 battle hex. And of course, there's no battle up in Atu Kiska. It's an unoccupied rock in the middle of nowhere, pretty much. And so it'll just be one of those things the U.S. is going to have to pay attention to going down the road. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So now the question is how to figure all this. Now the next thing that happens is the Japanese have moved. And as I promised you, we're now going to find out what the Allies even have as cards, which I had not done yet. And so now we're going to get to the Allied card shuffle. Here's the battle A again review. 4 units attacking the air unit there in Singapore. And here's our other battle for Manila. Okay, so now we're looking at the Allied card deck. You'll note that one card, Arcadia Conference, which is a political card, is set off to the side. The Allies on the first turn have the option of, and it's highly recommended that you do so, is you take the Arcadia Conference as one of your first 5 cards. Obviously the Japanese get to know that, but what the main advantage of this card is, one, it will stop inter-service rivalry, so it always has a benefit even going to the future. That's the benefit of all the conference cards have something like that. And it gives you a headquarters. And you'll note by the color, it's a dark blue. It's a joint headquarters. That means that this HQ can actually activate any nationality unit in the game. It's actually one of the best HQs in the game. It comes in as a course of this particular conference. The problem is it's got a major restriction. It has to be placed in Java. So if we remember our geography, it has to either be placed in Java, Borneo, or Celebes, all places that are coming under Japanese attack. And so consequently, if you get it in there and you can't protect it, it's going to get knocked out. Now, for the Japanese, this HQ is a problem. Typically, the Allies will try to get it into Kandari over here, and And Kandari is a location that's just at the limits of Japanese logistics, unless they move headquarters forward. And so, consequently, the Allies can try to do something to get it in here. That's why we're going to such great effort to kill all of these air units, so that there isn't a lot of things the Allies can do while we're, getting the jump on them. So, with that said, let's find out what the Allied cards are, that we can put some grit in the wheels of this Japanese offensive. So again, in the same vein, we're going to shuffle them up here. I used my manual card shuffler earlier. I'm sure that you can see that I'm not paying much attention. I'm looking through the viewfinder screen, so I keep my hands in the shot. I'm not doing that good a job of it, but I think that'll get it. And we'll just cut it one more time. And now we're going to deal 4 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4. The Allies get 5 cards, but of course, as I said, you start off with Arcadia. So let's see what we get. So first off, we got a Curtis LeMay card. So this is a late war card, but right now we got a 3 card, which will be good for moving things around. Let me close the shot in a little tighter, so you can see the pretty cards that Roger McGowan and Mark Simonich created for this game. By the way, this game won the graphics award, and I hope you can appreciate what a dynamic job these 2 gentlemen did on this game. It's just really gorgeous. The map and everything works together so well. Next, we got another big military offensive, Operation Stalemate. Not going to be a lot of attacks going on early on, but again, the Allies are going to have no shortage of activations for Central Pacific kind of things. Cherry Blossom, another good offensive card, and lastly, Anakin, more of an offensive tied to ground operations. But in general, the Allies got a lot of ability to move. Their biggest problem is going to be where they can move. And again, their problem is in the Dutch East Indies area. They're not going to be able to do a lot. So as hands go for the Allies, this is not this is the kind of hand the Japanese hope the Allies will get. Is they got lots of things that they can do, lots of bullets, lots of gas, but not a lot of leadership to make it happen. So we're going to be looking to the Allies to see if late in the turn we can convert one of these cards into something interesting with our limited amount of amphibious shipping points, or what we've got going on with ground forces in Burma. But we're probably not going to see a lot of benefit out of these cards otherwise. So, going back to our battles now. So, the Allies, now we know what the Allied cards are, and the first thing the Allies do, and again I'm going to go back to the Japanese card, is that's the card that's currently in play. Now, it's hard to see, but I'm going to try to really bring the camera in to this part right here, and hopefully the camera will resolve itself. There. Sorry about that. So you'll note, let's look here, these are small numbers, but it looks like they're pretty big in the viewfinder. So the 3 is the value of the card. That determines how much time and energy the card's letting you have, and 3 is the most you can get. Then it says OC5 and EC7. OC5 means if Japanese use the card for the 3, the intelligence condition die roll will be a 5. If I use it for the event, the intelligence die roll is a 7. And by the way, we're rolling on a 0 to 9 dice, so basically the Allies would only fail to see this attack coming on an 8 or a 9. If the Allies enter an enemy air zone of influence, which means any time you come within 2 spaces of any air unit, you know, they have reconnaissance planes, they're going to see you. And so they get a die roll benefit. And as such, basically, because of that reconnaissance benefit, normally it gives you a 2 benefit, but you can't do better than, you know, a 9. 9s always fail intelligence. So the only way this is going to be a surprise attack is a 9. So that, again, that's just sort of a rule that 9s always fail intelligence die rolls no matter what. So basically 0 through 8, and the Allies see this thing coming, roll a 9, it's a surprise attack. Obviously high expectation, it's going to be you know, some kind of, the Allies are going to see this coming. And so if we go over to our handy dandy dice area here, here we go, that's my die roll, you can see the dice, and we'll see if we can do a live shot of the die coming out, and it rolls a 2. So we're good. So the Allies see this thing coming, then the question is, what are they going to do about it? So the 2 battle hexes, you have to have an HQ within range of the battle hex. So MacArthur, just so you want to know where Doug MacArthur is, he's right under here. And so Doug's sitting right there, so he obviously is aware that there's, you know, Japanese shells hitting all over the place and that there's Japanese airplanes in the sky. And then over here we have Malaya HQ. There's really not much either one of these gentlemen can do, but MacArthur does have the ability to activate a couple of units, which Malaya HQ really doesn't. And so if we go back over here, the Allies, MacArthur's range is such that he can actually activate this bomber unit, and there's a destroyer over here. But they have to go into a battle in order to do that. Now, you know, one could argue that there might be some minor benefit. If we can keep that air unit in Malaysia alive, it would be of some benefit. But there's so much attacking it right now. As the Allies, I'd say, what's the point? I'd rather keep the destroyer. So the Allies are aware of the attack, which means that the Japanese will not get a surprise attack die roll. But in either case, there's really no particular benefit to reacting. And so now we're going to do this battle first. And if you kind of do the math real quick, the Japanese are bringing, what do we got here? We got 42, 52, 58, 68, 70. We got 70 points of Japanese versus 6 Allied. So that doesn't bode well for us. But one thing you should also know is when we roll the dice, and it could be very exciting, is if the blue die roll will come up at 9, a 9 is a critical hit. And no matter how outnumbered you are, if you roll a 9, you get to hit something. So let's see how the dice go here. Well, it's interesting. So while the Allies did not get a 9, that's the blue die, you can see that's a 6. The Japanese did get a 9, but they don't need that much. They accomplished their mission. And so in Battle A, the Malaya Air Force heroically goes down in flames and is taken off the board. Now we go to the Battle of Manila, and again, the only thing the Allies are hoping for is some heroic moment to base them, and look at that, we did get it. My goodness, I gotta tell you, when the probability on rolling 4 dice and getting 2 9s is not normal, but the Allies did get a hit, and what's kind of cool is they're gonna really hurt a very strong, so the Americans do a great job. So this one's done, he gets hit 40, he gets 40 hits, so he's shot up. But you take the unit that has the lowest defense strength, so he's only got a 4, and he obviously is less than a 10, less than a 14. But because he got a critical hit, this Japanese air unit has taken has been damaged, and it's flipped over, and this guy is eliminated. So therein lies the end of our opening battle. So we removed the battle, my little battle letters, because that's no longer relevant. And now we're going to do post-battle movement. So we've had, just to review, we had activated units, we moved into the battle. Then we figured out what the Allied reaction was. This is how I interspersed the idea that you can get legitimate surprise in this game. We just took some damage here. Now what I want to do with the Nagato, and there's no Allied units that survived that were active. You have to actually activate reaction units. So since none of them survived, it doesn't really matter. The Nagato is actually going to sail back to Hong Kong and create sort of an invasion fleet with a ground unit there. We'll get some benefit hopefully out of that. The air unit is going to stay right where it is because it's his air zone of control, controlling the skies over Manila, that's keeping Doug MacArthur out of supply. So this headquarters is out of supply, can't activate, can't be used for anything, and at some point we're probably going to pull Doug MacArthur out of Luzon and bring him back to Australia, as he did historically. Over here, what we're going to do is we're going to leave this air unit here to keep an air zone of control over over Singapore so that Malaya HQ doesn't get into any trouble for us. And then we're going to take this cruiser that's sitting here and we're going to sail it over to here with this marine unit. So again, we've created another invasion fleet. You're always trying to think about how you sequence moves and positioning forces. So you're always thinking multiple moves into the future. And when you're thinking through a hand, the better you'll play better than your opponent if you can see your whole hand more or less to the end, or unless they do something that's really unusual, catch you off guard. But to the degree that you can see into the future and sort of get the guys in the right places, you're going to do better. We're going to send this very powerful air unit up to Bangkok now, so it can basically help us with a future invasion of Burma. And this other air unit that's here, we're going to basically send it over to here because we're going to need it shortly for another operation. And we'll discuss that in a second. So again, we're going to put that other air unit is going to fly to Davao, Mindanao. And so at this point, the offensive is concluded, and the Japanese have played their first card. And now it's over to the Allies. The Allies start the game with 5 cards but 2 passes. And at this point in time, the thing that I would actually do, which would I find to be useful, is I think the Allies are going to preempt or make hard the Japanese ability to attack in the China-Burma-India theater. So this is the China-Burma-India theater, and it's got a couple of salient features. First off, this is Rangoon. Now this is again now called Yangon, by the way. It's part. This is Burma, of course, is called Myanmar in today's world. We got what's cool is on top here. You see this blue air unit. That's the famed Flying Tigers of America, officially the American Volunteer Group, the AVG. And so they're in Rangoon, but you've got some very weak border forces that are mostly Burmese, Indian constabulary forces. They're not meant to stop an invasion. And then further back here, we have a couple of Indian Corps, not bad units. And then of course we have over here, and again, China's abstracted, but you do have the entire China coast, and you only have this part of China. Japanese units are not allowed into this part of China. That's handled as a separate set of processes and this track up here. So that is abstracted, but these are the 3 Chinese units that can fight in this theater that did historically. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at the Allied cards, and the one that recommends itself to us is because it's it has a restriction that won't bother us here, is we're going to use the Anakim, and even is a Burma offensive, but quite frankly that's not the point. But it is a logistics value of 3 card, and with SEAC, which stands for Southeast Asia Command HQ, which is way over there in Calcutta, at the edge of the map, you can see that gray area says India. Right below it is the HQ. We're going to activate 4 units, and what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to make Rangoon a little bit harder to take, and we're going to make sure the Japanese don't get a free shot at those border forces by pulling them back a little bit and making their lives a little bit harder as they try to figure out what they're going to do in that particular theater. So the Allies are going to activate 4 units. We're going to activate this corps,
this corps. We want to actually we'll just activate this one, and we're going to activate one of the Chinese armies. Those are the 4 units. We're going to move forward. We're now going to move them. Let's see. So this unit's going to move back 1. This fellow is going to move into and reinforce Rangoon. This unit's going to move over to Dhaka, which is again a key port, and this is where the HQ is in Calcutta. And we're going to move this Chinese unit by road. This is the famous Burma Road right here. 1. And we're just going to sit in Mandalay right there. So we basically have at least formed up our defenses a little bit from a future Allied offensive. And so now the fun part is what's going to happen next. And so now we're going to go back to the Japanese hand. So after some thought, I decided to go with the Tokyo Express, second Tokyo Express card at this point in time. That's going to give us 7 activations out of Combined Fleet HQ, which I call CFHQ for short. Now, the first thing we note is that we get this bonus of 2 ASPs, plus we get this really cool Tokyo Express marker. So as I said earlier, the Tokyo Express marker, if you can look way down there, is going to be associated with, we put it up in the Aleutians, so just in case something happens to our supply line from Tokyo, at least for the first turn, these guys are fine. So they're immune to attrition because there's special convoys going up to the Aleutians, and so we solved that that's one thing off our minds for now. And now let's come back down to what we are going to do, which is, as you can see, my great camera work. So we're going to activate 7 units, which is 4 for the logistics value of the Tokyo Express card, plus 3 for CFHQ. And that's going to give us 7 things. Now you're going to start to see how we were thinking about ahead from our last card. Is we're going to activate a invasion force with this 16th Army with this light carrier. That's going to allow it to go sort of in harm's way and do a sort of a key attack. We're going to activate this area. Remember, we flew this one in from, it started out in Formosa, battled in Malaya, and then we shot it back over to Davao for what is going to happen now. And we also, you'll note, way up here at Hong Kong, you'll remember we put a battleship up there with a ground unit. And so that little pairing up here is going to allow us to make another opposed invasion, which is going to be a benefit to us. And then one of the nice other benefits, this is why this is such a good card at this point in the game, we get 2 free shipping points. Imagine 2 free transports. They're using destroyers or some other kind of forces in a surge motion. And so we're going to activate 2 ground units in this division and this one to capture 2 sort of lightly held areas so we can move forward. And this, again, was a big part of any attack in the Pacific, is you got to get your land-based air forward. For that, you need air bases. For that, you got to invade things. And so it all goes around like that. And so, again, we've activated everybody. We've got our 7 activations. And again, where people get in trouble is they don't do the activation. They activate somebody and move them, and they activate somebody else and move them, and they go, oh, what about, don't do that. Activate everybody. Here's who's activating, and then make all your moves. So now we're up to offensive movement now. And so the first thing we're going to do is this invasion force here, and I'm going to sort of zoom out, and you'll have to sort of follow the action. Our goal is to get airplane cover here to keep Abda. Remember the Abda HQ we talked about earlier? There he is, sort of waiting to come into the game. We want to keep that HQ out of the game, because as long as he's out of the game, the Dutch are going to be basically punching bags for us, and it's a lot better than if they start flying. Even though they don't have much, they have some planes, they have some ships, but believe me, they can cause a lot of trouble in this smoothly running offensive that we're trying to get going here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this invasion force and we're going to invade Balikpapan. We're then going to take this Marine, and he's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. He's going to take Makassar, and that's an air base that we need. We're then going to take that invasion fleet way up here, and we're going to go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and we're going to invade Batavia, which is on the Dutch east, on the island of Java. It's a port, and that's so we'll see what we're going to do there. And then here's kind of the Hail Mary, but we got a free shipping point. We won't get hurt, but we may not succeed. But we'll see what happens, what a failure looks like, is how you would sort of say, well, how's this 9 ever going to fail against a 1? Well, we'll at least talk that through. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and he's going to try to take Tarakan on a Hail Mary. And then lastly, we have this bomber that here, and he's going to assist the attack on Tarakan to give us a little bit of a shot to pull that off. So now let's put down our battle marker so we can keep track of the battles. And so we'll call this Battle A, way over here. We'll go left to right. Battle B, I guess, would be this one here. Battle C is over here. And we're declaring, this is the part in the term when you declare battle hexes. And even though we landed here, there's nobody there, and there's no enemy air power to even detect us. So we are immune to all of that. And so it goes. One thing that's important, by the way, to note, and I think that I will bring it up here real quickly, is let me just show you the route of that Marine unit again, and there's a kind of a rule that comes in here. So this Marine unit went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it was on its way to, it's sailing. And you'll note there's an Allied air unit here. There's this B-17 sitting here. Now, two things are important. One, the B-17's out of supply because MacArthur, who was his supply source, is cut off. So when an air unit is cut off, it loses its air zone of control, which would be 2 spaces in all directions. The second thing that's important is a B-17, or a long-range bomber, as it's called in the rules, has sort of a provisional zone of influence based on the fact is that it doesn't have fighters associated with it. All the other air units in the games have fighters, so bombers have a sort of a special capability. So it can bomb, keep ships out, but this unit here has fighters in it, even though it shows as a 2-range bomber. It's got zeros and all that kind of stuff. And so its zone goes out to, cancels this guy's zone. And even if it was a regular air unit, it would be the same situation. So the fact that this air unit's here, we can sail through these waters here because we're getting air cover from this unit here, and then he lands in Macassar. So that just sort of gives you a little sense of how that might work out. So now we're going to come back to the Allies, and we're up to the intelligence part. And as we saw earlier, we have no reaction cards. We have only these really cool offensive cards at a time when there's probably not a lot of attacking going on. So we're going to roll the dice mostly to see that we don't get surprised. And so we're going to shift over to our die roll area here. And so this intelligence die roll, again, only fails on an 8 or 9 this time. So let's see, what do we get? And we got a 0. It's not a 10, it's a 0. So that's good. The Allies are aware of it, but with no HQs and nobody sort of in range of these battle hexes, it doesn't mean much, but at least you see the procedure. And so now we're going to conduct our battles. And so first, Battle A. Now this is going to be an interesting battle in the context that a battleship is going up against a destroyer. It's not likely to go well. Again, we're looking for, so when you're looking for the excitement factor here, when you're in Allies, roll 9. So the blue die is, we're hoping for a 9. Okay, well, we didn't get a 9. And interestingly, by the way, so here's how the combat system works. On the air-naval system, if you take your number of combat factors, so we got 20 Japanese battleship combat factors rolling in here, which is obviously more than enough usually to obliterate this destroyer. But for whatever reason, it was at night, it was foggy, it was raining, who the heck knows what the problem was. Japanese rolled a 1. And a 1 means they're going to get a quarter result. So a quarter of 20 is 5 hits. A half result, which would have been a 3 through 5, would have gotten us 10 hits, and a 7, and a 6 through 9 is the full score of 20 hits, with the 9 being a special case. But you still only get 20 hits. Well, the Japanese rolled a 1, and so although the destroyers did not hurt the battleship because they needed a 9 to do that, the destroyer was not eliminated. So that'll give us an opportunity to look at a rule. So it's flipped because it took 5 hits. It's got a defense of 4. 5 hits, it doesn't have enough to get the extra hit. And we have, since there's no ground unit in defense of this space, and this air unit doesn't have a zone of influence, which would have kept us back, by the way, normally. But again, ABDA's not in the game. That's the key part here. We could have, by the way, chosen to put ABDA in at the end of the first attack, which would kind of activated all of this, but then we'd likely lose it, and we really wanted it in Kandari. So now, this has been one of those things. What are the allies? What's the best allied play? A lot of players believe that if you can't get Abda into Kandari, where you can maybe defend it a little bit, it's best then just to put it into the FOQ and keep the ability to end inter-service rivalry and get this HQ in later, maybe of more benefit. And in fact, you might find yourself as the allies looking to see if you can invade and take Kandari, even with the Japanese still ascendant, and then get Abda into there. I've seen that happen in some games. So we didn't use the Abda card. Could have, which would have made this a different kind of attack. But again, with the cards the Japanese had, it would just mean we would have made different choices. But anyway, so this space has been taken, and what's going to happen with this guy, he's going to have to make an emergency naval move. He's going to be shifted somewhere at the end of the offensive, but he's not dead. He's just going to end up somewhere else. Now, Battle B is kind of is automatic. Basically, the way the combat die rolls work is when you have a ship in a space, you get a +2 to the die roll. When you have an air power in the space, you get +2 to the die roll. So a carrier in the space is going to give you a +4. And the terrain is this jungle is a -1, so +4 -1 is +3. And on a +3, the worst the Japanese can do is get a 9 hits. A 0, 1, or 2 would have gotten a half result, which we're going to find out how that works out in Tarakan. But right here, it's an automatic. So, and if we roll the dice, there's no critical hits for this situation. So this this Dutch regiment is knocked out, and the Japanese successfully capture Balikpapan. Now, the situation in Tarakan is different. Tarakan, first off, is mixed terrain, which is a -2. We have no naval unit in the space, so we only get a +2 for the air. So +2 -2. So there's a 30% chance if we roll a 0, 1, or 2, Tarakan, these Dutch guys, will hold. So let's get our excitement of the dice here. So again, if you see the red die come up with a 0, 1, or 2, the attack has failed. Look at that. Perfect. So, again, the dice love no one, and the Japanese here did roll a 2, and so these Dutch guys, and they rolled a 9, but though the 9 doesn't do much because it means that the 1 strength is double to 2, and 2 is not sufficient under any circumstance to take out basically reduced Japanese army. So this is like a regiment of cops, basically, with a couple of light machine guns. But they heroically defended Tarakan from the Japanese, and so this was a free ASP, but we were not successful. And this guy gets to go back within range, and we're going to send him back to Davo here, and we're going to hand out medals for that guy for holding on to Tarakan. So an unsuccessful Japanese assault, and you can see how it can happen in this game. When I designed this game, one of the things I was trying to think about was how to have a game where if you want there to be luck, you do an attack like this. And for me, that means I'm going to automatically fail anyway, because the dice don't love me. Actually, the dice love no one, but they particularly don't love me. So when I designed this game, I said, okay, the dice don't love me, but I really like this situation. So what happens in this game is you can actually pile on enough force to know that you will succeed. Of course, it takes a lot of, you're going to be inefficient in your use of force. But the advantage is, and then all you get to find out is, did I lose anything? But you know that you're going to take the objective. And so there are situations, this game is, you can take the luck out of this game with good play and with, effective use of your cards. Not always, sometimes you're going to take a little bit of a risk, but as my friend David Doctor says, when you go Vegas, anything can happen. So the last part of this operation is post-battle movement. Now this is important here because we want to put an air unit here. So let's just get this destroyer out of the way for a moment. So the battleship is going to sail back to Balikpapan, and the light carrier is going to sail into here. And what that means is that we now have an air zone of influence over this part of the island. And then the last part is we're going to post-battle move this air unit. Remember, this guy was part of this battle, but he didn't succeed there. But in his post-battle move, he's going to go bump, bump. And now he's sitting in Macassar. Let's just kind of get that in the shot. And so now that air unit is going to, sort of lock this out. So if you kind of imagine sort of these, like a radius around these two Japanese units, basically the Japanese, between this air unit and this area, this whole area is under Japanese air cover, and they have air superiority in that area. We've got a plane here that's going to give us air superiority here. The only place that's still open to the poor Dutch is Sorbaha. And now how that's going to go, we'll see in a moment. But the point is that Now the Japanese have pretty much locked out any Allied action. And again, part of how you play an opening well is to the degree you can pull off situations where you can get your airplanes forward, you can get the right spaces, get your airplanes forward. You can basically do what the Japanese did historically. They gained air superiority. The Zero was a huge surprise to the Allies, and consequently, how things went from there went from bad to worse. So, with that, I'm going to break off this particular segment, and I'll come back in just a little bit with another one covering the next Allied responses. But let me sort of give you a preview. The Allies are going to pass at this point. The Allies have 2 passes. There's nothing going on here that they can affect in a meaningful way. I mean, what I'm going to do is way over there is Oahu, and how we think about what we could do with those guys in a little bit will be something we're going to talk about as we get later into the term. But right now, things are going all the Japanese way going forward. Well, so far we've gone through 2 Tokyo Express cards, which is great fun for the Japanese. But so far you're sitting there going like, wow, what do the Allies get to do? Now, as in all things, the opening hand is is going to be the way it is. But remember, in the long run, the Allies are going to get this enormous amount of power, and that is really what's going to drive the final result. And so the Japanese need to try to maintain the initiative, and that is making the Allies react to them for as long as possible. Now, the things that that are going to go on around here are going to vary. But I thought it would be useful to see a couple of things that didn't happen, and then talk about what we're going to do with the Allies. I think is worth a discussion at this point. So I'm putting down, here are some cards we would have loved to have seen, and I'll sort of zoom in a little bit on this. So we would have loved to have seen a reaction card. There's 2 ambush cards. The ambush cards are very powerful. Here's Commander Rochefort. This is sort of the midway card. We would have liked to have seen a card like that. Always fun is a submarine card. In other words, we get to shoot at, basically the Japanese are moving fleets all over the place. We're going to get to, put some torpedoes into something. That's always a help. Another thing that we would hope to see is a War in Europe card. So there's a whole mechanic on the War in Europe, and basically, if the Allies can drive the war, if the War in Europe goes well for the Allies, they're going to be able to send more resources to the Pacific earlier, and so that's going to help our reinforcements. That means giving us a larger slug of forces. And by the way, the Allies get quite a bunch of units coming in for the next turn. I'll kind of review that in a moment. And so the War in Europe card would help. Of course, the Japanese have the opposite, the counter to War in Europe cards, and you don't want the War in Europe going badly, so we would have liked to have seen one of those. And the Allies at this point don't know if the War in Europe is going to get worse. But usually the Japanese, some people are big fans of playing War in Europe cards, and they get all emotional about it. But the reality is that War in Europe cards in the opening hand for the Japanese, one is useful, and just in case the Allies are holding one, and so you can keep the Allied reinforcements sort of at bay a little bit longer. But in the end, it's going to be one of those. A really big one is inter-service rivalry. That's one of the big mechanics in this game, is at various times, and it goes for both sides, the Japanese Army and Navy don't talk to each other, which sort of ruins the smooth flow of their operations. The Allies, the U.S. Army and the U.S. Navy can also get into those situations, which of course is beneficial to the Japanese. And so these are just kind of ideas of some of the cards that we could have seen, but we didn't get to see. What we've got, though, instead, is you always got to play the hand you've got. And so the hand that we do have is we've basically got some very powerful. We can move around a lot. And so what I would be thinking about for the Allies at this point is saying, okay, right now the Japanese are having a great time in the Dutch East Indies. I've sort of set my defenses in China, Burma, India theater. So if they want to come for me there, sure, we'll fight a fighting withdrawal back towards India as I did historically, and hopefully at some point our reinforcements will start to show up and we'll hold them at bay. But right now the Japanese have not started that offensive. We've already got our defenses set, so at least the surprise element of that attack is not going to happen. But when we think about what we really want to get done is what are the options that we're looking to play toward? You know, it's not what we can't do, but what can we do? And again, what we can do is, you know, this card here, Operation Stalemate, we basically can move every single U.S. unit that's in play on the board in the Pacific. We could do the same thing with Cherry Blossom, and even Curtis LeMay is good enough because we don't have that many forces. So we've got that going for us. Using Arcadia at this point is almost a throwaway card, and so I'm thinking that we're going to put that to our FOQ, which means future operations queue. We'll save that for our next turn. It doesn't do us any good to just throw away that unit. On the other hand, if we get into an inter-service rivalry situation, ISR, it's going to be of benefit to us to be able to get, because the card, even if we don't get the unit in play, we do get out of inter-service rivalry. So it has a benefit to us, and it's probably worth holding on to for that reason alone. So we've already figured out that this is what the card we're going to put into the future operations queue to keep the ability to have a conference, and that conference is going to create peace between the various warring factions and in the debate. But then what means we're going to use these 3 cards, and basically we can move the U.S. fleet in total 3 times. And so and then we can move the Marines and everybody else for that matter. So the question is, what are we going to do with that? So let's take a moment to look at the rest of the board. So what we're doing right now is we're going to zoom in on the Marshall Islands. Now, I'm going to zoom in. This is Kwajalein, the center of the Japanese position in the Marshall Islands. And what they have sitting out here is a small force consisting of, let's just sort of uncover those. We've got a light cruiser, not very strong, but it does give us amphibious capability. You know, creates a small invasion force with this Japanese Marine unit. Now, what's interesting is this Japanese Marine unit is already on its reduced side at the beginning of the 42 scenario. It starts the game like that. It's like this, and you ask yourself, well, what happened? Well, this is one of the great, you know, American stories. Is right over here, and actually I'm gonna have to. That's Midway, by the way. So we just go down this direction from Midway, and over here, here we go. So let's just shoot out real quick. So you see these green units here. This is Wake Island. In fact, you can see the name of the island right under there. What you've got is a squadron. It's the actual, there's one squadron of Wildcat fighters that were flown off of the, I think it was the Saratoga, right before the Pearl Harbor. You know, the Americans were knew that from their breaking of the Japanese code that something was going to happen. And so the reason that the U.S. carriers were not in Pearl Harbor when the Japanese attacked there was they were off launching planes to Wake and to Midway. Here's Midway. So just to give you sort of a little geography, so I'm going to zoom out real quickly. So you see this kind of triangle as you've got Kwajalein in this area is all held by Japan. They got those as the mandates from the Germans, I believe, from World War I. And they control all these islands and there's ports and lots of airfields that they built up. Wake is our base in that area. Then you back over here, you've got Midway, and that leads back to Oahu, which is over there. So this is sort of the terrain, if you would, of this part of the world. And sitting back over here, that big pile of pieces in Tokyo is, most of all the Japanese carriers. The big heavy Japanese units are way back here, and so if you notice, you got the two big fleets are sort of at each end of the Pacific from each other, and here's a bunch of stuff in the middle. And so one of the things we would try to think about is, could we get a raid in? Historically what happened was the U.S. fleet actually raided and bombed these islands and caused the Japanese to think about it. And the other thing is of some interest is right now the Solomons, and so this is, and right now I'm looking at Guadalcanal is right here, is still held by the Australians. The Japanese, one of their objectives and one of the reasons why I'm holding the East Force card back in this game for a little bit longer is that I think that it's going to be a good play for the Japanese to use paratroopers and various things to, we want to basically try to capture New Guinea and the Solomons to build up this whole southern area to hold back the Allies from coming in from Australia, which is of course down over here. So from the down under guys, we want to sort of hold a barrier, and then we want to keep the Americans from getting into the Marshall Islands, which they didn't do historically until 1944. And of course, if anybody is really looking for their history, let me just give you a quick close-up. Here is Tarawa, which currently has not yet been taken. The Japanese did take it. And again, what's important again is, remember I talked about land-based air. So Tarawa and Wake are important to the Japanese because it allows, from this position and this position, they flank the Marshall Islands. And so what we want to make sure, so the ability of the Allies to bring airplanes into these two locations is what gives them some leverage in an attack on the Marshalls. And so the Japanese are going to want to capture some locations. And one of the things I was thinking about is we could use paratroopers because we have an airplane here. We could actually drop paratroopers on Tarawa and just take it over real quickly, which would be a nice little move just to back off the Allies a little bit. So again, these are the things that I'm thinking about. But then on the flip side, the Allies are going is, well, just because the fleet's back here now, when you start to look at those kind of cards, well, we've got basically three. We can move that fleet in total 3 times, hit something, go somewhere else, hit something else, go somewhere else. And the only thing we got to be careful about is we don't get entangled in a major fleet engagement with the Japanese. And so the question is, where can we hit that will cause them problems? And so the thought that I have is that as we get later in the turn, the Japanese get more, start to focus this way. Once they start heading to the Pacific, that's going to cause us some problems. Right now, they're dealing with the Dutch East Indies. We might consider an earlier than later move of the fleet over here and shifting it down, to somewhere down into this area. And from there, we can launch a strike at Rabaul, or we could hit here. And then when we're done, we could still end up back in Pearl Harbor. So I'm sort of starting to think through what that series of attacks would be. And again, the reason you would do something like that is all about the initiative. We don't want the Japanese to just kind of go running all over the place. And anything we do to sort of get their attention is of value. And so that's some of the things that we're thinking about. But right now, it's early enough in the turn. We got these 2 passes we need to get out of the way if we want to have that last card play. So, okay, so now for the next phase of the operation. As you'll see, this is the Japanese hand, and I've set aside the Kamikaze card. Now, the Kamikaze card is a late war event, but it's basically the utility 2OC card that's in the Japanese deck. I cannot tell you how many times I've gotten notes from folks saying, trying to sequence a deck. They don't like to see a Kamikaze card early in the war. And you should just know that this deck is an unscripted deck, and there's 6 Kamikaze cards in the deck. But all I want to have happen in a given campaign game is one or two max to be played actually as the event. So by putting 6 of them in the deck and having done all the mathematics on that, essentially you should see just 1 or 2 of the Kamikaze cards at the right time in the war, assuming even a weird or unusual disposition, because you get to maneuver things around with the future operations cards. Anyway, we're going to play this 2OC card, and what we're going to try to accomplish, and let me just now zoom back here, is a big part of the Japanese plan is just because you're using a 2 card to launch the attacks. What we want to do now, the main once these attacks, is that we don't have to just focus on one area of the map. And so the battle hex is going to be Surabaja. So this is the place where we're going to use our 1 battle hex. So anytime you use a card just for the value, you don't have an event, you can only have 1 battle hex. And so this is going to be the battle hex. But the question is there's a lot of other areas of the map, and if we just sort of zoom around to the Pacific, we can start now to fill in our offensive into the Central Pacific. Because again, the historical Japanese plan was
concurrent and simultaneous operations all over the place. And so we're going to use that strategy. Now, the thing we're going to do is, again, whenever you can, you want to use your best HQ as often as possible. And so for this particular operation, we're once again going to use Combined Fleet HQ. And the key part of this is that Combined Fleet HQ is exactly 13 spaces to Miri. And so this combination of cruiser and naval unit are going to be our invasion force of Sor Baja. We know that there's no air power that can come get us right now. So again, air superiority has a lot of benefits. And then the question is, what are we going to do with the other 3 activations? Because the 2 plus the 3 of the HQ is, and so we're going to activate 3 units. We're going to activate, for a future operation, we're going to bring in the big Korean army. This one's got tanks in it. That's the reason why it's, it's the one sort of, I concentrated sort of the Japanese, the amount of armor that they used in this theater is all concentrated more or less in this piece and a little bit in one other army. So we're going to shift this unit by port-to-port transfer. And again, on a 2 card, you can go 10, but when you go port to port, you can go, 20. And it happens to be exactly 20 spaces between Seoul, Korea, and Batavia. So we're going to flip the that Korean army is going to come in here, and so we'll just sort of shift it in there. Now that we've done our 5 activations, so we have this activated, and that one comes here. Our naval force here is going to sail 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Is going to go invade there. And then with our other 2 activations, we're going to start working on the New Guinea situation. Now, one of the things is we're going to use an ASP. We have 5 ASPs left at this moment. Now, the advantage having been that we got the second Tokyo Express card gave us a couple, and so now we're going to sort of start to use that surplus to our advantage, and we're going to activate this Marine unit over here, and we're going to bring it forward. And what we're also going to do is activate the cruiser that's under here, and what we're going to do is we're going to have those 2 units meet in Hollandia, and we'll see why that's a good idea. So basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're going to grab this port, and then this naval unit will travel, will wait till post-battle movement, basically. And then during post-battle movement, it's going to come over here. And again, what you're getting here is when you put a cruiser together with one of the 5 smaller Japanese naval brigades, actually there's 4 naval brigades, and the South Seas Force, which is technically an army unit, but I treat it as an invasion amphibious capable force, we now have Hollandia. So we're starting to grab parts of New Guinea that are within our range, and we used one of our ASPs, so we're down to 4 now. However, the next time we move this unit with the cruiser, it's not going to cost us an ASP because they can move, and that's how a lot of the operations in the Central Pacific, when we go for Guadalcanal or some other locations, are going to be based upon that. And so now all we've got left is this battle, and of course, going through the process, we now determine the reaction, and I only did 1 die, but it was the 4. Is the blue die is always the Allies, and it was a 4, and so the Allies appropriately saw the operation, but there's really not much they can do about it because they don't have an HQ within range of the battle hex at Sor Baja. Because again, we put Abda is not going to be, is going to be our future offensive card, and so now we're going to go. So here's our battle, and essentially, because there was a naval unit here, we had to travel the entire distance with a naval unit, which again was the Mogami. And so the Mogami first has to shoot it out with the Dutch light cruiser. But what's important is that
there's no way to lose this battle, but we'll see if we can't cause a little bit of damage. But the Dutch could get lucky. So again, going back to this, what we want to see now is if the blue die comes up with a 9, then we've got a critical hit and an excitement occurs. Well, as it is, we don't get that situation. You can see we got a 2 and an 8. And so going back to our battle here, 12 hits against 8 will flip this. And unopposed, so the landing occurs. And then the Dutch have to do an emergency naval move because they can't stay in a captured port. And for our purposes, we're going to send it back. I guess we're going to send it here, just to keep. We know that this hex will be taken by ground combat, but at this point, the any air attack in here, 7 plus just so you kind of think about the math of this thing. A 7 plus a 3 is a 10. Well, it's actually a 7 plus a 2 is a 9. So we're not going to be able to do very much. It doesn't almost matter where we put it, but we'll put it there for now. And so that handles the next card in the arrangement. So be back in a short moment when we it goes back to the Allied turn. Well, the dice haven't been loving me as usual, but the way I see the rest of this hand going is those two, the China event, which is not very useful right now, and this intelligence card, which is also not very useful right now, are both going to be used as 2 OC cards, which with South HQ will generate 3 activations twice in 2 separate cards. We're going to use East Force still for the Central Pacific, and then we still got flight instructors as our backup in case things go awry, but the hope is that we're going to get it into the FOQ, and that'll be a pretty good first turn. So the way I see this attack going is, and we're going to take some risk here, is we're going to activate the 2 Japanese armies that are in Batavia, and we're going to activate this one up in Malaya. And we're going to basically use an ASP going from using one of our 4 remaining ASPs. I'm going to bring this one back down to here, and then these 2 are going to attack. So we activated and then we moved, and now we're going to find out how the intelligence and all that goes. So it doesn't really matter, but we'll just to get you used to the process. An 8. So actually, it's a surprise attack, which in this case doesn't have much impact because there's no, there's no HQ that can turn on the Allies anyway. But if there had been any air naval, we would have gotten a huge Japanese attack them on the ground part. But now here comes the big die roll, is the battle for Batavia. And so first we're going to watch the blue die. If it comes up a 9, the air naval forces actually get a critical hit and have enough factors to flip that big Japanese army. And it is a 9. Oh, boy. This is impressive. So right now, we now know that the Korean army just took a hit. And so this die roll is pretty huge. Right now, the whole Japanese attack could flounder on the fact that they don't roll well on this next die roll. So let's see how it comes out, and we'll see how it goes. Okay. So what happened was the Japanese rolled. Let me just get you. Actually, we rolled double 6. Doubles don't mean anything in this game. They have to both be 6s, as you can see from the camera here. And so a 6 minus a 2 for the terrain is a 4, and a 4 gives the Japanese a full. They get 1 times their factors. A 7 or an 8 would have given 1.5 their factors. And a 9 would have given them twice their factor, but with a -2, the best they could have hoped for was a 7, obviously. So a 6 minus 2 is a 4, 18 hits. And so when we look at the situation here in the battle, the air naval forces managed to get a critical hit, which, again, I flipped it over already when off camera, but this was like this. These 2 guys got a critical hit, which flipped this over to this. Now I got 18 going up against 6. I rolled a 6 minus 2 is a 4, gives me 18 hits. 18 hits is sufficient, zoom out a little bit here, is sufficient to flip this to that it's a reduced strength side. On the other hand, the 6 at full value, 6 hits is insufficient to kill this unit. It probably never could have hit this unit, but it's insufficient to hit that unit. And when you figure out who won a ground battle, It's the side that lost the most steps in combat, and if there's a tie, the defender wins. Well, in this case, the only ground unit to take a loss was this one, and so the Japanese, although it was a little bit touchy there for a moment, they actually do take the space, and the Japanese are the ones who decide where to retreat this guy, and these guys are going to have an emergency naval move, and he's here. So the emergency naval move, we're going to basically send that plane up here, and we'll send this destroyer, light cruiser over there, and that will hopefully create a few more roadblocks for the Japanese going forward. Okay, so continuing on, we're up with our offensive, where it's now the Allied turn. We're out of passes, and so now we're going to play the Abda card into the future offensive queue. And the way you do that is, you place it face down on the table, and you put a marker on it. Now, eventually, the Allies this time are going to, the Japanese this time are going to figure out, once we play those next 3 cards at the end of the turn, what's in our future operations queue. But usually, they won't know. And so then it flips back over the action over to the Japanese. They're going to play this 2OC card, and we're going to activate again South HQ as we move this agenda forward, and we're going to activate 3 units. Let's see if we can get in a little bit. We're going to take Palembang, hopefully by this the 25th here. We need to get some light forces out into the Pacific, and so we're going to move this Marine unit to Truk over here. And what you're going to find out is we're going to do a really cool move here, is that when we activate Davo, which is over here, is within 12 hexes of Truk, which is where South Seas HQ is. And so we want to get that air unit down within range of Tarakan. And we're going to use paratroopers to actually capture Tarakan, which will give us a lot of leverage in how we finish off this turn. It gives us a free quick hit, don't have to use a battle hex, and then it just leaves us taking Medan to finish off the turn. There may be a way to do that also on the final move, so just stay tuned on how this is all going to play out. I just haven't counted all the activations yet. And so the actual move is going to be, this fellow is going to go here. Now, I could add the air unit into this battle, but with 16 factors, that unit's not going to be enough to kill the Dutch air unit, and I don't feel like giving them a chance to roll. There's been a lot of 9s in this thing, so I don't feel like giving a chance at a... and so all we're going to do is we're just going to fly the 21st down to here, which is where we want it, and it's going to use the paratroopers to fly from there to hit that, and then it'll shift into New Guinea, into Hollandia specifically, to lock out that port. Basically, most of northern New Guinea will then be locked out under our air. Again, it's all about getting air zones of influence over key areas on the map, and so it's going to be a big piece in pulling that off in just a moment. And then this fellow here is just going to sail, and I'm just going to go off camera, but he's over in Truk now, where he's been married up with an attack destroyer, a personnel carrying destroyer called an APD, and so that will now be available for invasions in the Pacific for no ASPs, because we're going to need another ASP shortly. So now this is really all about this fight over here. When you only have one ground step, air can never kill the last ground step in any situation. So when we look at this battle here, the Japanese are going overland. They're going to have a -1 to their die roll for the jungle. And so again, we're looking for, that's creating a 40% chance of failure, but we're going to take a shot at it. The air unit really can't do anything to it. But to get, again, let's go over to our dice rolling area. And first the intelligence roll, because you always roll for intelligence. It's a 7, so it's a surprise attack. So not that that means anything. We just said that the air can't do anything. So now it's really how this battle comes out. Oh, so it's just a little bit off camera, but there's the dice. You'll note that the Japanese rolled what they needed. So they got the 9, which doubles their strength, by the way. The 4 doesn't do much. And so Palembang has been taken, and that takes that unit out. The Dutch again have to merge the air move, and to make life harder, we're going to just keep running. So that Dutch air unit just continues to move north, and it'll create some problems for us in a moment. So now we're finally up to the Allies, and we'll see what's going to happen in just a moment. Okay, so as we said earlier, now it's time for the U.S. Navy is going to now start to enter this game right before things get interesting. And so what's going to happen now is we're going to play the Curtis LeMay card, which is as a 3 card, because this is again another late war event, which is with B-29. So again, it just becomes a 3 card, and we're going to play that. And what we're going to do, because we've already discussed all this strategy, so I'm not going to go into any detail other than to show you the actual move. So way over here in Oahu, we're going to turn on a portion of the U.S. Navy. Now, what's important to know is if the entire U.S. Navy is off the map entirely, or you lose 2 political will points. It basically says that the U.S. Navy has been crushed in the Pacific. You know, the newspapers blaring loss of naval superiority, etc. But what we're going to do is we're going to turn on just the Lexington. We're going to leave the Enterprise up here just to guard Oahu. Again, we don't want to get too aggressive. And we're going to also turn on some long-range bombers. And so what we're going to do with these guys, so again, we're leaving a whole bunch of activate. We can activate up to 6 because it's 3 plus the 3. As you can see, Send Packet, Nimitz. But we're just going to activate 3 units. And what we're going to do, as we discussed, is this area is all belongs to the Australians. And so these are friendly ports. And so what we're going to do is we're going to sail the Lexington and the New Orleans into Guadalcanal. Now that's going to put some American air power over the Solomons and make Japanese moves in this area a bit harder to pull off. We're then going to take that bomber, and this is sort of more of a spite move, but we've been rolling 9s all over the place. You just never know. And so the bomber is going to go 1, 2, 3. It's going to go to Kauai, then it's going to go to Midway, and on the 3rd move it's going to end up in Wake, and from Wake it's going to bomb Kwajalein. So again, we're just going to do a long-range bomber strike. And the thing you have to remember with the Allies is you get the Allies get 5 air steps per turn for the entire game. In other words, there's aircraft flowing in from the United States replacement aircraft. So this represents, so if you're not causing casualties with your air every single turn, you're basically giving up 5 air steps of damage you might have caused. And so we don't really care if this unit gets beat up because we're just going to replace it immediately next turn. So in other words, the Allied Air Force, because these are air forces, they're not like one bomber squadron. They're basically immortal unless you take extraordinary losses. And so the idea is to encourage you to conduct the traditional air war that was conducted. And so again, we're launching an attack. The battle hex is over here. So this is the battle hex. Because it's a 3LC, we can only declare 1 battle hex. Now you'll note that we could have put the cruiser and the carrier into that same battle, but what you get to know is that Kwajalein is within range of Tokyo, and so the last thing we want to do is give the Japanese fleet a chance to come out and wreck us, although they may respond. So let's go see how this goes for us. So now it's the Japanese, for a change, are making a die roll. And what's important is the bombers are outside of the air zone of Kwajalein, and so so this die roll has to be a 3 or less. It's a 1. Okay, so that actually worked out pretty well. I mean, it was a 40% chance of success, and the Japanese got it this time. And so what they're going to do, for the main reason, is they want to. This is a very important tactic in the game. Sometimes you respond to a battle like this, both to cause attrition, but also to give you the ability to reposition forces without using a card. And so the Japanese, in this case, are going to use South Seas HQ is within range. That's it right over here. And it's going to activate. It happens to be exactly 12 hexes to here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. And they're going to turn on, and so it's a 3 card. Plus 2 is 5. And so they're going to turn on 5 units. They're going to turn on this air unit and these and basically the main Japanese fleet. which is going to have to, actually I can't turn the air unit on. The main reason I can't turn the air unit is it has to be able to reach the battle hex. And so what we will do is we will also turn on the air unit here so it can be redeployed afterwards. So there'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. And so this group's going to go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Battleship will go into the hex, and the carriers will support. They're just going to get within 3 hex range. They have 3 hex range, so they're going to get within 3 hex range. So what we're looking for now, the thing that the Japanese are risking here is the almighty 9. So let's take our dice. So the excitement will be if you see a 9 on the, let me see if I can get this, there we go. See a 9 on the blue die, and ho, look at this. This has been an unusual day, but you've been watching it live, as they say. So we got double 9, so there's more than enough factor. The Japanese had way more than 20 factors. I mean, the Japanese carriers alone were 36. I happen to know that off the top of my head. But however, because of the 9, the Japanese get to 4 hits is not strong enough to hit anything onto itself, but you always hit the weakest unit. So because the carriers are all 12s, this is the 10, this is the 14, the 24th is actually struck, and this air unit is eliminated. But as I said earlier, we don't really care about that because we'll get it right back next turn, and we're getting late into this turn. And the Japanese now, a reaction player always goes first, does his post-battle movement, and so we're now going to bring the fleet into, well, we're going to bring the Soryu. Let's make our lives a little bit easier. We're going to make the Soryu is going to come back down to Hollandia, so that's automatically going to give us the air zone that we were looking for over here. I'll use that other one differently in a moment. We're then going to shift the Akagi into Rabaul, so putting an air zone over here, and these two, the battleship and the Shokaku. Actually, we're going to send the Kongo to Eniwetok, and just to hold our port, and we're going to put the plane, the carrier, into truck. So we spread the fleet around, which might give the Americans some opportunities to do some mischief, but I'm not too worried. But the main thing is that we've got some air. We covered all the basic places that the Allies could do some trouble. So now comes the last big offensive move for the Japanese, and if we can achieve what we're looking to achieve on this move, but I suspect we're going to use that last card anyway, but we won't have an FOQ card, but we're going to use this one. Now, again, this is the Paratrooper card, and don't worry, you never have to see all those words. Well, just follow that. But what it basically says is we can now activate 5 plus 2, so we're going to activate 7 units. And so what's important is, and we're going to do this from South Seas HQ, which is over here. So we're going to activate these 3 guys, and so you'll see what the method into that madness in a moment. So those 3 guys are activated, and we get 4 more. And what's important about the other 4 is what we want is Guadalcanal. So we're going to activate this cruiser, this carrier, and because we're going to be using only 1 ASP to flip that last guy into Medan, we're going to be profligate in here, and we're going to use another one to, we're going to move the guy in New Guinea here to grab another key location. And I think then we'll actually have all of the things that we need in this turn. So we got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So those are our 7 activations. Do I even need the cruiser? I could risk. Oh, I don't know that I want to risk the carrier that way. Now we'll probably go with it this way. I think it could work out. Actually, we can do it differently. We're going to be a little bit more aggressive here, and you'll see why. We're going to use these 2 activations, that one there, because again, that gives it. We can use both of those we can use the remaining the remaining ASP. No, we only have one ASP, so no, we have to go with this way. So this guy will go in with this. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4 plus the 3 over there. So here's how this offensive works. So as soon as we begin, again using the paratrooper rule, anybody that's within range of an activated air unit, which would be the 21st Air Flotilla right here, basically the paratroopers come in and take this out. So that's how you quickly. That's where the power of paratroopers comes in. And now we're going to do our move, because that has to happen first. So the bonus has been taken. And so the air unit is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he's going to fly into Hollandia, and he's going to attack the U.S. Asia over here. So this is Battle A. Then the Marine unit is going to sail down the coast and grab Leh. So that's another important... actually, no, we're going to actually invade and take Buna. Buna will be a better capture here, and you'll see why in a moment. So that's where we're going to use that... now we're down to 1 ASP. Now you're saying, well, what about the Dutch East Indies, Mark? Well, that's why we have this light carrier and this division here, which is our last ASP. And they're going to go 15 hexes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And they are going to go and attack Medan. And what's important about this attack is we had to bring a carrier, or an air unit had to be involved, because there was an air unit here. So that Dutch air unit has caused us untold amount of just problems. But again, in the end, this poor soul is running out of room. So again, even in this game, weak air units can be very powerful. And then over here, we have the big invasion of Guadalcanal. And so these guys are going to go here. He's going to come within range, and this is the battle hex. So we're going to have a little bit of a carrier battle here. And it should be interesting to see how this turns out. So first, the Allies have to roll for intelligence. And now, this is important. You will note that Guadalcanal is easily within range of Oahu. And there's air power, and yep, they make their intelligence roll easily. And it's 15 hexes away. Now, the 15 hexes is... what's right? It does allow activation of these units, and although the cruiser can't leave, the Lexington will pull back 2 hexes. So in other words, these 2 units are active, but what happens is that the cruiser can't leave the battle hex, but an air-capable unit can, but it has to stay within air range of the battle. So he can't get out of the battle, but he gets to at least not... If there was battleships in here, at least the battleships can't directly attack the guy. So here's our battle here. The conquest of Leh over here is a free good, and so this is Battle B. And then way over there, in Medan, we have Battle C. We'll see that in a moment. We'll do that one last. And so now the drill is, let's do the first battle. So the first battle is this air unit at range is going to attack the cruiser, and of course the cruiser has no capacity to respond to the air unit. Even anti-aircraft, there's not that much anti-aircraft fire in that unit to hurt it. So we're only going to roll the Japanese. And the Japanese roll a 7, which is 16 hits, which is sufficient to eliminate this cruiser. So that one's gone. And so we'll now move to the main event, which is a pretty exciting carrier-on-carrier battle early in the war. We're just going to roll both dice. There's no surprise here, and then we'll just figure out what the outcome is. Well, the Japanese aren't going to cause a lot of damage. Again, wasn't a lot of force here. Just to show you what those dice are, it's a 1-4. So what the Japanese got a quarter result, and the U.S. Navy got a half result. So the U.S. Navy went into the battle with 18 factors. If we come back here, we had 18 factors. We have an air unit. And with 18 factors divided by 2, we're going to have a 9. Now, unfortunately, 9 is not going to be enough to get this or this, and it wasn't a critical hit, so no damage here. and I can assure you that 24 divided by 4 is 6. Not enough. You can't hit the reduced unit when there's a full strength unit here. So basically an exchange of shots, but no significant damage. And here's what the important rule is, though, which is if there had been an Allied hit, it could have changed the outcome here. 18 defending factors remaining, 24 remaining factors here. 24, as long as the attacker has more, equal to or if ties go to the defender. So this invasion is going to go in. There's no ground support, and so Guadalcanal gets taken. And then the Allies, the U.S. Navy gets to do its post-battle movement first, but we'll come back to that. We don't want to get ahead of it. So that battle is over, and Guadalcanal has fallen. And then if we pan around to Medan, and this is going to determine whether the Japanese do or do not get a FOQ card, because we'll see how this battle goes. Now, what's going to happen is I'm going to roll the dice now. So we basically have this carrier going up against this air unit. Neither one is strong enough to hurt the other unless there's a critical hit. So, and the main thing is that what the carrier is supplying is a +2 to the die roll automatically because there's no naval support. And okay, so there were no critical hits there, and so now this is the all-important ground battle. It doesn't matter what I'll roll them both just because it's fun to do anyway. But just look at the red die and let's see what comes up. Okay, the red die is a 7, and the way that the terrain worked out, it's a -1 +2, so it was a +1 to die roll. It's an 8, enough to capture the hex. And so when we come back over here now, what we have is the Dutch were eliminated. The 19th gets to go into Medan because it won the invasion. And our poor Dutch air unit is once again has to relocate, and he has to go back to this air base. He won't be there for long. And then this light carrier is going to go back to Davao because we want to keep that air zone over at the southern Philippines. But here's where the post-battle movement is really important, and I'll show you how all of these moves work together in the final analysis. So you'll remember we put a light carrier. Long ago we put the light carrier Soryu there. We've got a cruiser here, which is just going to stay. He wasn't activated, but this air unit was active. So the Soryu is putting an AZOI over sort of this whole section of New Guinea, including this port here, which was the key part of it. The northeast is not, but again, there's no port there. Ports are critical. And then the air unit is going to displace into Buna. And what that's going to do is it's going to put an AZOI over all of southern New Guinea. So we've got air power covering all of New Guinea, basically. And then we're going to bring the Kagi is going to pull back to Rabaul, and we'll leave the cruiser here. And these two fellows, they actually would have moved first, and I apologize for going out of sequence, but I'm just trying to show you how that whole move worked out. They get to go 15 hexes from these two locations, and what we're going to probably do is we're going to split the difference. We're going to have this fleet inhabit, a good place to go is Funafuti. You'll note I've got all sorts of nonsense sitting down at this end of the table, so let's just get that off. That's the extra pieces and whatnot. But that means we now have a carrier. We've got a U.S. carrier down over here. And why that's important is we get a couple of card plays, and we may be able to do something from range. So we're going to put those guys down there. And so that ends that move. So now we'll shortly come back and finish up the Allied move and see what the Japanese do with that last card. Okay, so we're back. As you'll note, we have 2 cards left. We're going to save Cherry Blossom for the last card because it's got an interesting bonus with cruisers, and we do have a U.S. cruiser that we may take a shot with on the last card and hope to get lucky. But what we do have now is we're going to use Stalemate, which again it says log value 6 if you use the U.S. Central Pacific HQ. So again, a lot of cards have little. You have to read every single card. There are a few cards that are similar, but there's very few cards that are identical. Kamikaze cards aside, a couple of the ISR cards. But for the offensives, they almost all have little unique characteristics. And so we're going to use this as a 4. And the reason we're going to do this is we're thinking a little bit longer term with the Allies. So let's not forget that there is this other war going on way out here. And the Japanese this turn have not really done much out there at all. I mean, other than they actually haven't even moved a piece there yet. So here we are. I've been thinking about this a little bit. So there's 2 ways to play the card. Now, even though if we use the event for the card, what you would get is 4+1 activation with the HQ, which would then give us 5 activations. However, this is, again, this is the 1 plus the 4 that's on the event. However, this is a situation where we've got a lot of weak air and naval assets out here, and what we'd like to do is not get them all shot to pieces this early in the game, because then we can't replace those. We'll have to send an actual U.S. Air Force that comes in next turn, or some other British air will show up. And so to avoid a problem, even though we could play it as an event, we're going to play it as a 3 OC card. And what that really does is it reduces the probability of a Japanese detecting the attack, and we're just going to do it with straight up air power. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a 3, so we're going to turn stalemate from a military event into just a plain old 3 OC card. That'll give us 4 activations, and we're going to activate that 1, 2, 3, 4. And what's also important is we do not want to breach within 2 hexes of here, because we don't want to give the Japanese any air reconnaissance capability here. And so we'll fly 1, 2 up to here. So we've got 13 factors. They're going to attempt to make a bombing run on this guy, and these 2 Chinese units are just going to be positioned. That's a 1. This is 1, 2 to infile. That sounds like a reasonable place to position those forces. And we're going to see how the dice go for us. Okay, so now the Japanese are making their intelligence die roll, and they rolled a 4. And it turns out that the intelligence condition is a 3 or less, and so the Japanese actually failed their intelligence die roll. So what's now going to happen is those 2 planes are going to get a surprise attack on the Japanese without any reaction, so that's cool, and they get a +3 to the die roll. So we got 13, and we got a 7 plus 3. It doesn't really matter. We got a 1 times result, and so what's going to happen now, if we just turn back over to here, is our raid. The Flying Tigers. This is the Flying Tigers and the British air that was in that area. Successfully bombs that ground unit, knocks it down 1, and then we'll reposition. This arrow will bounce back to here, and we'll leave the Flying Tiger sitting right in Rangoon. And so that was a very successful little strike on there. Now it's over to the Japanese. Okay, so we're coming back with Cherry Blossom, as you can see it in the shot here. We're going to do this in kind of a long shot way. We're going to basically activate the Allied, the U.S. Navy that's over here. We're going to look at that as being somewhat expendable at this point. We're not going to bring the other carrier out. We know the Japanese are out of cards, right? So the only thing, as long as we don't lose, the last carrier, literally, we're fine. And so we're going to take a little bit of a gamble here. We're going to attack Guadalcanal and see if we can damage that cruiser there, because again, anything you do. The other possibility is we could do the historical raid. Now that I'm thinking about it, we could do the historical raid like on Buna and try to take this air unit down, but that's a pretty strong air unit. So we're going to take a shot at just something, make the Japanese bring stuff to us. And one of the nice things about Cherry Blossom, that 6 becomes an 8. So we now have 20 factors coming in on this location, which is enough to sink that cruiser if things go well. So let's look at our dice. The Japanese are rolling. They don't have any air over this area. Oh, this is cool. Another 9 to end this turn, which is brilliant. So the Japanese, when you roll a 9, it's always a failed intelligence die roll. And so the Japanese don't see the attack coming. To the bold go the good news. And so what happens now is there's no Japanese reaction. No Japanese units get activated, and it's just the Allies. And because it's a surprise attack, we get +3 to the die roll, and it's not simultaneous, it's sequential. So if this cruiser can survive the initial attack, it gets to shoot back at the cruiser. It can't do anything to the carrier under all circumstances. So let's first see what the Allies do. +3 to the die roll. Oh, very nice. 7 + 3 obviously is more than a 9. We get 20 hits, and 20 hits sinks this cruiser. See, 10 hits, 20 hits. And so there is no reply shot because it doesn't exist. And then the carrier is going to go back to Funafuti, which is a good raiding location. So here's a situation where, just to so you understand the value of it, the bonus on the card made the difference here because it was a 12 and a 6, which is 18 full. On you needed 20 hits to kill the Mogami. 18 would have only flipped it. You would have then had eight hits against 10 more to kill it. Wouldn't get there. So the Cherry Blossom Cruiser bonus, which was based on Arleigh Burke and Empress Augusta Bay, gives the Americans just the margin they need to sink the Mogami, and that ends the turn. So let's just do a quick run through here. Both sides have a future offensive cue card. What's going to happen now is we do the next thing that's going to come up is the attrition phase. At this point, there is nobody who, excuse me, I got it backwards myself. It's the political phase comes next. So what you do is and it tells you what hexes, but we captured all of the hexes required for the Dutch East Indies. And so the first thing you find out when you read the surrender rules for the Dutch East Indies, all the Dutch units surrender and go away. And the Japanese pick up all Dutch East Indies hexes. So this all starts to look like, it looks a lot like the Rising Sun. Remember, the game is called The Empire of the Rising Sun, and so this is how it's done. And so Kandari and Bali and Kopang and Mbona, Morote, yes. Jolo actually, and this is where Jolo is part of the Philippines, and so it stays. Well, we're going to put American flag. You only use the flags when it would become confusing. And again, this is important. When the space becomes Japanese controlled over here, the Dutch unit goes away, but the American plane gets to do an emergency naval move, and he gets to fly to Darwin. So the American plane. So we do have some survivors here. We have the reduced destroyer, and we have a reduced B-17 squadron still located there. And I'm going to put some flags out in New Guinea now, is that Sarong is still Allied. These are still Allied locations. The main thing is going to be that because of the AZOI, the Americans won't be able to bring reinforcements into that location, and so that's going to be a big hammer for them. And because we have AZOIs over all of New Guinea, there's going to be no reinforcements coming in here. And then because of the Guadalcanal and Rabaul causes the Solomons and the Bismarck Islands all to go Japanese, and so we continue. Although we did lose the Mogami in that last raid, we still pick up all of these locations here. And so those are, again, obviously will not be available to the Allies for reinforcement purposes next turn. And so that concludes. Oh, then there's attrition. You will note that since there's no HQ down here, and this one's in the enemy zone, this is going to go like that, and these guys are going to attrit, and air doesn't attrit. Once it's down to the last half step, it's within range of MacArthur. Even though MacArthur's still on the map, he's still submarines and all that. Supplies, but that goes like that. And the guys in Malaya are going to attrit. So again, air superiority, rearing its ugly head against the Allies, and of course there's the Philippines. These are one-strength units within range, even if the HQ is at supply, but this one goes down. This is the Bataan Peninsula, and that looks like it. So I hope you've enjoyed this particular run-through of Game Turn 2, the Japanese opening in the Pacific. Hopefully, if I get a good enough response from this, I will do further ones in the series. But again, it's been very enjoyable hosting you in this situation and showing you how to play out and think about playing the opening turn in Empire of the Sun. Take care.